That's it. Bingo. Because the hand eye, I have a friend who went to Galapagos and she kept a journal, and the participants were much more interested in seeing her journal than the photographs.
Welcome to Wild Development Studio. Join us as we venture into the breathtaking realm of wildlife arts and untamed adventures. With captivating stories from the field and ideas to dive into the visual arts, we'll ignite your passion for conservation. Get ready to develop something wild.
Welcome to Wild Developments. I am your guide, Lauren, and today we're talking to Clare Walker-Leslie. Her mission is to inspire others to realize that the process of seeing takes precedent over perfection, and falling in love with the world around us is not just a privilege, but a lifelong journey. Clare herself says, the process of seeing is what counts, not how good is my drawing. Born and raised in Pennsylvania, Clare's journey led her to pursue a BA in art history from Carleton College in 1968. Little did she know that her true passion lay in the intersection of nature and arts. Self-taught as a naturalist, Clare's journey unfolded through the pages of her nature journals, a practice she has upheld since 1978, now totaling over 50 volumes. These journals serve as a testament to her unwavering dedication to observing and documenting the ever-changing environment around her, whether it's in the heart of the city or the tranquility of the countryside. Despite starting as a musician and initially declining offers to write, Clare's journey has led her to author 15 books, captivating readers with her profound love for the natural world. Her travels have taken her to 28 states where she imparts her wisdom as a teacher, speaker, and exhibitor. With a rich teaching background at esteemed institutions like Williams College and Harvard's Landscape Design program, Clare shares her expertise in nature drawing, field nature study, and the art of nature journal, encouraging all ages to forge a deeper connection with their local environments. As a member of the National Guild for Scientific Illustrators and the Arts for Nature Foundation, Clare's impact extends globally, with her books transcending borders and languages, spreading the universal language of nature appreciation. Clare, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Well, and congratulations on book 15, How to Look at a Bird. What inspired you to write this book?
I write books because of my own curiosity and desire to learn. I have kids, grown kids. They grew up watching their mother write a book a year. So this is number 15. And friends laugh because at the end of every book published, I say, I'm not going to do any more. And of course, I do another one. This one came out of my husband and I being up in Vermont, isolated because of COVID. And I would go down to our local meat market, or just regular market in rural Vermont, where you ran into construction workers, farmers, rural people. And everybody had their mask on. And I knew that some of them had bird feeders. And I knew this was a safe thing to talk about. You can't talk about politics. You can't talk about religion. There's so many things you cannot, gender, things you can't talk about. But with these dudes, I would watch their eyes completely change, their face glow when they talked about, the cardinals, the blue jays, the crows, the ravens. Oh, I saw a red tail, blah, blah, blah. And they got going on all these stories. Now, these are not people with field guides. They don't have cameras. They don't go around the world chasing birds. They just find, as I deeply find, the world of the bird sends us outside. And so I decided that I would do a book for the person who doesn't even, know what a pigeon is. I would start with the very basics. And Lauren, it's been the most moving experience in my own teaching, and just with a 90-year-old friend this morning, we were watching grackles. It's our way of connection. And I've been doing this since the early 70s, and I am deeply, deeply concerned that people are not connected with nature as much as they used to be. We never talked about climate crisis back then. We talked about the Whole Earth Catalog and One World and Native American prophecies. We felt connected to the whole web. I was just at a big conference and I was extremely disturbed. It was an environmental ed conference and it was all about us. Me, systems and recycling and improving our water. The only animal mentioned the entire day was a polar bear.
And
Now,
probably
what
an
percentage
ice
of
cap.
people have seen a polar bear? But you get people in our neighborhood of urban Cambridge talking about the turkeys, and this is what we need to do, is to look at our local nature that is around us. And I have worked with Jane Goodall. I've studied abroad. I know what I'm talking about, and I know what I'm drawing. I teach people who've never drawn before. I don't care. Drawing is just an avenue. And I set up the nature journal, and I want to make this very clear because I don't really understand the process. I started writing and drawing about nature because I'm an artist. And I did this with a naturalist. We walked around the Audubon sanctuaries. He wrote and I drew. And then I was asked to do the back page of the Audubon newsletter for a bunch of years where I wrote and drew about nature. And I feel very strongly that once you have learned about something, once you've noticed something, you care about it. And without this connection, we don't care. So that's my spiel. And yes, the book is doing very well. I seem to have a niche where I draw and write the way I teach. I'm not a perfectionist. I mean, Jack is much better at drawing than I am. I don't care. I want to do drawings that connect people.
Well, that leads me to one of my questions I was going to ask a little bit later on. Can you explain to our listeners who don't do nature journaling right now why it doesn't even matter that you don't have to be a good artist. Just get in your journal and start doing something. Why is that important?
Oh man, uh, I don't even start with drawing. I have a format I've been using across the country, internationally. The first thing you put on your paper is not a drawing, it's the date. I am an art historian. I have studied the history of science. Many early journalists in the field started with what I still use, which is the first thing you put down is the date, the place, the time, the weather, the phase of the moon. And it's not until you get further onto the page that you go outside and you say, oh, yeah, let's see what we can find. Maybe you draw something that's got 3 eggs and 6 legs, and underneath it, you write ant. And people will say, oh, you saw an ant. It's the integration of the image and the word. Now, my first book called Nature Drawing: A Tool for Learning was about how to draw. And I am a professional artist. If I am going to draw an ant well, I'm going to take 2 hours. But that's not the point. You're outside, you're not sitting at a park bench waiting for the animal to come to you, you're walking. So, how can you draw well when you're walking? How can you draw well when you're seeing? What I care about, and this goes all the way down to second graders to 92nd graders, is how well you saw. And if you can connect those legs in the right place, not to the head, not to the abdomen, but to the thorax, you're in my ballpark. So it's not about how well you draw, because frankly, learning how to draw is extremely difficult. Just like, learning an instrument. And it's not fair for people who want to get outside and have fun. Does that make
And
sense?
absolutely. And the more you put pencil to paper, the better you're going to get over the years.
Well, you need technique. I was just teaching a class yesterday on landscape drawing, and I'm very classically trained. My books, the reason my books are successful is I do know what I'm talking about. And if you're going to want to know how to draw a bird well, then you got to really sit down and understand anatomy. But that's the second step. The first step is let's go out and just see what we can find. It's curiosity. And that's the point of the journal. It's not, Lauren, to make a pretty page. I think much as I really admire Jack and I like him, people are thrown off by how pretty his pages are. That is not the point. The point is to make a messy page. Maybe it's going to drop in the mud. Maybe, you're going to smear on it. Maybe you're going to lose it. When I was studying in England, I worked with a master who said, dare to rip up your paper and throw it out. The point is the observing. And that to me, that's where I'm at. I was just on the beach last week watching two short-eared owls. My drawings are crap, but the image of being there was what it was all about. And that's hard to get across because we're very, we love pretty pictures. I mean, I love the pictures sitting behind you.
Well,
Those are lovely.
thank you.
People say, "Oh, you can really draw. Oh, I love that hummingbird and I love that cardinal." That's not what this is about.
Mhm.
Now, I can do that kind of painting. I have an exhibition going right now, but it's not about the nature journal. The nature journal is about getting out and recording what you are seeing, not how cool your drawing is.
Right. Do you find that your methods have evolved over the years?
No.
Well, that was an easy answer.
Um, I have a lot of humility. I am a vehicle for what I learned back in 1970. I don't know what it was. I wanted to learn how to draw birds, and I wanted to learn how to draw chipmunks, and there was nobody in this country who I could study with. I knew Roger Tory Peterson, I knew Robert Bateman, I knew, some of the top wildlife artists. I didn't want to do portraits. I didn't want to do, these wall calendars. I wanted to do birds that were alive. And I had the really good fortune of studying with Eric Ennin in England, John Busby in Scotland, and Gunnar Prusowitz in Sweden. And back then, and this is why I'm so fortunate, they took me into their homes for a week's study free.
Wow.
And so my books are all based on what I learned from them. They became very close friends. I mean, they adored my husband, they adored my kids, blah, blah, blah. This has become, a way of life. And so, no, my life hasn't changed.
Do you find that with teaching and everything going on with social media and cell phones, has that changed the way the students are interacting with nature?
Oh, yeah. And this is why I give it off to Jack. I don't do social media. I would rather be outside. I
Mhm.
don't do Facebook. I don't do Instagram. I barely do websites. I have extensive, and that's how you've connected with me. I have an extensive email. I answer every single email. I do have to say, my husband passed a year ago, and this has probably been, not probably, has been the largest change in my life. And I'm finding also, this may be the big change in my teaching, in has come nature as solace, particularly during COVID. We're all extremely disturbed and upset with what's going on in Palestine, Jerusalem, Sudan, our presidential elections, blah, blah, blah. And I was out on the beach watching these short-haired owls with this guy. I don't know who he was. He was Joe Public. And I looked at his face. He was ecstatic, talking about taking pictures of these short-haired owls. It's a break. It's a pause. We need these pauses. And maybe that's the change. When I started back in the 70s, I was a lot younger. I didn't have kids. I was totally in love with nature. I didn't see this dark side. Now I know the dark side is here, but I'm not going to talk about climate anxiety. I'm going to talk about the Canada geese, the bald eagles, the robins, the cardinals, the tufted titmice, the birds that are adapting. And that's I've worked with Jane Goodall, and I think her lessons for hope are critical for everybody to read. Because I could go under the bed. I mean, I've gone through some really deep grief the last 12 months, and what has hauled me out is going outside and looking at birds.
I'm
So
sorry.
that's my next book, actually.
Oh, so you got number 16 on the way?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, I love my editors. Story Publishing is a fabulous publishing company. My books are translated. They're in every park. I'm fortunate.
Yeah. You're like a modern day Charles Darwin.
Well, hey, Charles Darwin said, and this is a quote a student gave me, his greatest regret was he didn't know how to draw.
Really?
You see, what happened with these historic scientists, and we all know this on these expeditions, and I have books of them, they took scientific illustrators on board with them. And it
Mhm.
was the artists who drew the specimens because you couldn't bring these specimens home. And that's another very important thing about the nature journal. I have drawn things I couldn't photograph. I've drawn things, the battery on your phone doesn't work or you're in dark light or the journal is proof. And this is the really fun thing with kids because I say, you are a detective. Where's Waldo? You're Sherlock Holmes. Let's go out and see what's around. And I have to tell you, I went out one day with the class. I've done hundreds and thousands of classes all over the country and Canada and Europe. I was out with a teacher. The teachers are required to go out and journal also. They must participate. And we go out, curiosity kills the cat. And this one teacher was, stockings, didn't have adequate clothing, didn't want to go out. She said, these kids are going to go out and run around and want to go to the playground immediately. I said, watch. They went out and they were drawing clover and they were drawing ants and they were drawing clouds and they were drawing, oh, I don't know, there was a raccoon that ran by. Lauren, I looked at her at one point and she was crying. And I said, what have I done? Oops. Said, how do you test for joy?
Oh,
Ah, her kids said, we'll skip lunch. We'll skip recess. We want to stay out. Kids innately are curious. And it's not in our school systems anymore. When I started teaching, we took kids out. Today, you can't because of all the rules and regs. They learned the basics between a robin and a cardinal. Today, that's nature study is not in the classroom. So maybe that's another big change. I'm having to work even harder.
I feel like it's making a comeback. I'm hoping.
I'm hoping too. I think we have to work harder because we're so distracted now by these environment. I mean, I don't 30 years ago, we were saying the term environmental education should be changed because it's all about us. And I'm so glad I went to this meeting last week because I came home furious. It's all environmental climate change is all about saving us. You're right. It is in the news. It is in the media. There are incredible organizations globally working for conservation, rewilding, bringing birds back, but you don't hear about them. So that's why, with all of you out there, join these organizations, National Wildlife, Cornell Lab of Ornithology is top, the Center for Biological Conservation, Sierra Club. Get their magazines, read their articles, because the work is out there. And interestingly enough, predominantly 80% of the people working in the field are women.
Wow, you don't hear that. That's great.
Yeah. Well, it's probably because it's a low pay scale. Um, but women have come a far distance, also much more diversity. All the stories about black bird watchers, they're out there. Um, I was just in Brooklyn, all along the west side of Brooklyn, looking onto the East River was a nature path. Um, we don't hear about this stuff. So dig, you know, pick up online. That's where online is good because there are these articles. Um, and I'm thrilled by what Jack is doing. I'm so excited by what you're doing because the Nature Journal is a fabulous access because you don't have to know how to draw well. You don't have to even speak English. There are nature journalers all over the world. And you know that, what is it, national, because of the woman in Australia, there's an International Nature Journaling Week in June. Do you know
I
about it?
I did not know about that one.
Oh, man. Well, it happens to cross over with, or it did one year, the National Black Birders Week. It was the
Oh,
same
wow.
week. And so what? They're doing the same stuff. Um, but seek and ye will find. I know what I'm doing. I've been out there, and it is fabulous how many people I meet on the street love to talk about the birds in their backyard. So
And
that's the success of my books. They're very approachable.
did you learn or discover anything new while you were creating this book?
Oh, yeah, that's why I do books. I have to tell people that I grew up not outside. Well, I was because everybody was in the 50s, inside wasn't, read Richard Louve's book. Inside wasn't so interesting. And we had one car, so we walked. I was in college. I was a professional musician. I only had boyfriends who liked to be doing, artistic stuff. I wasn't outside. It wasn't until after college that I began all this, whereas, Jack started when he was 4. So I understand the transition from not being interested in nature to be totally curious. So every book I do a lot of research. And for the bird book, I had to read and read and read and then synthesize information on migration, bird song, bird behavior, uh, camouflage, coloration, songs, and yes, maybe the difference is I did a lot more through Google and, Cornell Lab, but I do also use my books. I've got behind here is a whole armada of books, endless. And that's what I was telling my students yesterday. If you want to get into this field of nature journaling, please, please do your research. Mostly European books on nature journaling. This is new to this country. And my first teachers were Diary of an Edwardian Lady, Beatrix Potter, Ernest Shepard, because I didn't have any teachers. So I went to books to learn. And I'm still reading books. I'm always learning.
I think that is a great characteristic and quality to have. And then you're always creating too.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got my granddaughters doing it. I mean, it's kind of infectious because look at Jack. My God, the guy won't stop. Curiosity drives us all.
Do you have a favorite journal that you like to use that you can beat up or do you have all different varieties and types?
No, no, I don't. In fact, all my stuff is in the car. I keep it in the car, and I don't have a studio. Where I'm sitting is my desk for everything, but then the dining table is there, the kitchen is there. I work with kids in my lap. I don't have a fancy studio because then I wouldn't do it. So I'm drawing constantly. What I use, Lauren, and in the car is number 60. These are it's a Canson or Strathmore. It's a hardbound journal. And so, aha, here's Jack. That's pretty funny. I do add photographs.
Very
I
nice.
didn't used to do photographs. Um, oh, this was, clocking the lunar eclipse.
And we got
Um,
another one coming up.
we do. This happens to be journal number 50, January 2015 to February 2016. Um, yeah, I mean, I do some watercolors in the field. I am a professional painter. I have an exhibit. So these are all done in the field. They are not, well, yeah, some of the drawings are done at home. But it's my this is my research.
Hmm.
So I don't care what you think it looks like. I'm not doing this for show. I'm doing this to learn. Um, so all my books I refer back to here. Um, yes, I did journal the passing of my husband. Um, and that's a whole another part. Because the journal isn't just cute stuff, and it isn't just fun stuff. It's sad stuff too. Um, and I mean One thing that's really helped me through, and I was just talking to a friend about this, helped me through this really dark time, is the seasonal cycles of nature. And I did write a book during COVID called A Year in Nature: A Memoir of Solace. Not with Story, but with another publisher, and it's also all the books are still in print. I mean, it's, like, crazy trying to haul them out from underneath my son's bed.
What would be your advice for somebody that wants to start this practice? I realize when I look back at my journals, it enhances my memory. I have one page where it's just like a couple scribbles and I remember exactly what that landscape looked like in that
Right,
moment better than a
right.
photograph would have.
That's it. That's it. Bingo. Because the hand-eye I have a friend who went to Galapagos, and she kept a journal, and the participants were much more interested in seeing her journal than the photographs. And as you said, these journals are forever. I drew my mother's hand before she passed, and I still have that picture. So it's a how do people begin? I don't know. You just put the date.
Oh,
What's
yeah.
going on outside? March, whatever this is, we're almost into equinox. You start asking questions. I'll go into a classroom and I'll say, okay, this is the date, write it down. This is the place. Who lives here with you? Who lives here with you in your town? And the teachers say, ah, yeah, they don't know. They won't know. Ha! Of course they know. And it's really fun. I was teaching in New Orleans in a private school, and the kids in the front were all the soccer field kids. The kids in the back were the fisher people and barely in school. Of course, they knew this was their chance to really shine. And I find because the drawing field plane is flat, little girls who think they're really good at drawing are no better than little boys who say, I can't draw. They're all doing stick figures as long as they label it. Now, if you want to make those stick figures better, you bring it back home, you get out your paper, you get out your pencils, you get out a nice light, and you shoo everybody away. And 3 hours later, you've done a really nice cardinal. But you can't do that outside. So I think it's overcoming that fear of I can't draw. It's not drawing. I don't call this drawing. I call it mark making.
Do you have a particular exercise that you love to teach when you're out
Oh,
there?
crap. Will you just come and join me?
I would love to.
Yeah. Oh man, it's the blind contour. Do you know the blind contour?
I do, and I learned all about it in this book right here, Nature Connection.
It
It was what
it's such an icebreaker. I've done it with 300 businessmen who would have walked out of the place if they were supposed to draw. It helps you to see. I do the blind contour, and then I do something called the modified contour. And that's in the nature drawing book. I tell kids that adults have to cheat, they have to look. And so this is one that I use a lot with a bird feeder. You're looking at the paper at the same time as the bird. So, and these are throwaway drawings, they're warm ups. So, yeah, that's my fave. But the other day, I was out on the beach and I came across what I thought was a white-sided dolphin, and I drew it as a white-sided dolphin. And then I got some advice from marine mammal people, and they said, no, it's a porpoise. And I went back and saw my drawing was completely wrong. Now that's science. That's a whole nother thing. But the foundation I would love to impress on you and your listeners, it's all about learning to see.
great advice. Where can people find you and follow you? I know you said you don't do social media. Can you let everybody know what your
Oh, I
website
have a
is?
website that is really big, and they have to spell my name right. It's www.ClareWalkerleslie.com.
And I will tag that in the show notes so people can hop right on over to your website when they get done listening to this. And before we go, what is one tip that you have for someone that wants to reconnect with nature?
One. I mean, I started to say, "Well, go outside." Well, Lauren, not everybody can go outside. I mean, what do you do when you have COVID, or what do you do if you got polio or pneumonia? Just find a window and look out. And I'm doing a lot now with these elder people I'm walking with. Look at the sky. Figure out, are the clouds? What's the color of the sky? Where is the sun? Are we getting more daylight, less daylight? Is it raining? Ask questions about the sky. And then the other thing that we're noticing now is that the buds are swelling on the trees. Just start looking at that stuff. Now, that's easy to write down. And that is all part of your date, place, time, weather. So have a blank piece of paper, write down the date, and just write down 5 things of nature you're noticing, because it'll be different in December.
Yeah,
It's always, I mean, if you wanna go into the Buddhist way, which I am a precept follower of, everything is changing.
very good. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing your wealth of knowledge.
Well, you want 5 more hours?
I would, yes, I would love that. I'm
Well,
seriously
stay
gonna
in
have,
touch because actually, Lauren, I'm teaching in this area, and I'm having a big book signing, May 5th at our Porter Square Books in Cambridge. So if anybody is in the New England area, if they contact me through the website, I do respond.
yes, you do. Thank you for that, by the way. And until next time, get outside and see what develops.
Thanks for joining Wild Development Studio. We hope this exploration into the world of wildlife arts and adventure has sparked a desire to get outside and connect with something wild. If you have an adventure that's awe-inspiring, don't hesitate to share. Click the link in the description to submit your story to have it featured on our show or be a guest. Until next time, keep connecting to the wild and see what develops. The views, opinions, and statements expressed by individuals during Wild Development Studio productions do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Wild Development Studio or its affiliates. Participation in any activities, expeditions, or adventures discussed or promoted during our content may involve inherent risks. It is strongly advised that individuals conduct thorough research, seek professional guidance, and take all necessary precautions before engaging in any such activities. Wild Development Studio, its representatives, or employees shall not be held responsible for any injury, loss, damage, accident, or unforeseen incident that may occur as a result of participating in activities inspired by or discussed in our content. By choosing to engage with our content or act upon any information provided, individuals do so at their own risk and discretion.